Hello everyone, my name is Preston Dennett, and welcome to a new episode of UFOs and the Paranormal. I call this episode the Chatsworth UFO Epidemic. I wanted to present it to you today because it shows how one person can have encounters and they begin to spread among their friends. So this is about a small group of friends, each who have had encounters. Another interesting aspect about this case is that one of these encounters took place in a very unlikely location. So let's just get started. The first case I'd like to talk about took place in the town of Chatsworth in Southern California. This is a very densely populated suburb just outside of Los Angeles, and the main witness is a young woman in her early 20s by the name of Teri Smith. At the time, she worked as a physical therapist in a doctor's office. On the evening of December 26, 1988, Teri Smith and her boyfriend Brian had gone to sleep in a condominium complex in Chatsworth, California. And there were other people in the house at the time, 3 adults and a small child. But Teri and her boyfriend Brian were in a room alone. And in the middle of the night, Teri woke up because she sensed a presence in the room, or she heard this sound. She's not sure what exactly woke her up. But I will let her describe what happened in her own words. As Teri says, "I have this little alarm clock that ticks really loudly, and I was just woken up for no reason. My alarm clock started getting really loud, the ticking. Then I felt the bed move. It was vibrating to the noise of the alarm clock. And then that's all I could hear. I couldn't hear anything else. It was really loud, so I was trying to open my eyes. I tried to get up because I thought it was Brian who was next to me. I was just trying to tell him, but I realized I couldn't talk. The sound was like the perfect beat with the clock, but really loud. I realized I couldn't talk, I couldn't get up, I couldn't move anything. And this feeling, I don't know how to explain this kind of feeling, but I couldn't see. You know how when you get up really fast and you kind of black out? Like when you are coming to, when you start to see, it's really spotty kind of. I could see a little bit, but it was cloudy, spotty. And I was trying to look for Brian. And then I started to hit him in the back because I couldn't talk. I could tell I was making this noise, like a choking, gasping noise, this weird noise. But I couldn't say anything. And then I tried to just kick my legs over and jump off the bed. And that's when I felt, I don't know if it was like fingernails or what, but down on my ankle, like a stick in my leg all of a sudden. That's when I got scared because it was hurting. I was trying to move my leg and I was trying to move my upper body and I couldn't do anything. And then all of a sudden with all my might, I don't know how long this was lasting. I have no idea how long this went on. But with all my might, I just screamed out his name. I realized it sounded funny when it let loose. I hit him in the back because I had so much pressure, and finally it just released or whatever. And this is the part that sounds really stupid to me. I thought, am I crazy? Was it a dream? I don't know. But I looked to the window. This went really fast too. The window was about 4 feet from the bed, and there were these really sheer curtains hanging down, and they were opened. But you can see out the window. And I just saw this bright light, like leave the room. And then, which really sounds stupid, but it's what I saw, unless I'm crazy or dreaming, I saw this, I don't know, spaceship or something. It was round and it just took off. It looked like a round-like spaceship. I have no idea. Like a flying saucer. It just went shoo and up and gone. So I asked Teri to describe these events a little bit more closely, and she said that these pains in her leg felt not like fingernails so much, but like 2 prongs two on each side, something sort of gripping her leg. And this object, she said, looked like a spaceship. She doesn't know how else to describe it. As she says, it was white. It didn't have any lights on it or anything. It just looked like a white something. It looked like a spaceship type thing. It was just this round object that as soon as the light left the room, whatever it was, I'm still trying to focus my eyes, it turned to smoke on the outside of the window. And then I saw this object take off. All of a sudden it was gone, straight up in the air and gone. So this completely freaked Teri out. She immediately woke Brian, who told him what happened. And he had no explanation, though he could see she was concerned. No one in the house apparently saw anything, we found out later. So it was just Teri who saw this. And not only saw this and heard this, but felt it as well. Eventually they did go back to sleep. This was in the middle of the night. She went back to sleep, and all night long she had nightmares of people coming into the room, grabbing her leg, trying to pull her out of bed. She dreamt about helicopters hovering above the house, shooting at her. But these were just dreams. This event before, she says, was absolutely not a dream. She says, I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I know this was not a dream. But when morning came along, here's where it gets strange. She did not remember it at all. It had completely left her mind. Of course, this does turn up in UFO encounters. So that is where it was for the time being until she went to work that day. And she's walking around the office in her high-heeled shoes and realized that her foot, the one that had been sort of grabbed by this force or these prongs, felt really sore. And it was just the one foot. And that's when this all came flooding back into her head. And not only was her foot sore, her neck was also very sore. And this soreness in her foot and her neck lasted for about a week. So this was another indication that this was an entirely physical encounter. Teri does say that there was a huge alleyway behind this condo and plenty of room for this large round-shaped object to be sitting there, which she says was probably about the size of a small room. It never made any sound. The only sound she heard was that weird sort of ticking sound. So after work, she got home and she decided to call her best friend Tracy's store and tell her about it. And Tracy was surprised to hear this because she had never told her friend anything, but she was having very similar encounters where something would enter into her room. She'd find herself paralyzed, unable to move or cry out. And she told Teri that, yes, this sort of thing had happened to me several times. Never, however, had she seen a UFO. And then she told Teri the shocker. It turns out that Tracy Store's boyfriend, George, had had the same experience on the same night. And this is just a few miles away in Chatsworth. So Teri asked to speak with George, and they spoke together on the phone. And George said that that night, December 26, he had woken up because something had entered his room, and he couldn't move or cry out. And Teri said, did you feel anything? And he said, yes, I felt like something was trying to grab my leg. And he asked her, did you see anything? And she said, yes, I saw this white-like object. And she asked him, did you see anything? And he said, yes, I saw the same exact thing. And it left the room, and outside of it there was this white object, this round-like spaceship. And it darted out of the room, turned to smoke, kind of entered this object, which took off straight up. So they basically had the same exact series of events happen to them on the same night, only a few miles away. So clearly these events were related. They are both very good friends with Tracy Store. So this was a truly remarkable coincidence and really freaked out Teri Smith because it provided a further level of confirmation. And turns out that Tracy's store is the center of all this activity because while Teri Smith and Tracy's friend George have only experienced this once, Tracy's store has experienced it numerous times. And when I spoke with her, she had a very interesting story to tell about one of these encounters. And this occurred 1 year earlier in 1987 in the town of Woodland Hills, California, which is immediately south of Chatsworth, just a few miles. Woodland Hills is a very densely populated suburb, again, right outside of Los Angeles. And Tracy's encounter took place in a very unlikely location. She was staying at the Marriott Hotel in Woodland Hills. This is a very large hotel with multi-stories, a huge building located in the heart of Woodland Hills. And Tracy had rented a room in the Marriott Hotel on the evening in question when she had this experience. And it was the middle of the night when Tracy woke up because she felt like something had entered the room. And again, I will just let Tracy describe in her own words what happened. I remember trying to lift my head or move my arms. It was like something was on top of me, holding me down. And I tried to yell, and I couldn't yell. My mouth was open and nothing came out. I was trying so hard to either wake up or get up or snap out of it. And it felt like something was stopping me from doing it. And I remember looking up and there was something with a red light around it. When I was trying to see what it was, I was looking and I couldn't see any facial features, whether it was a boy or a girl, but it felt like something with a red light holding my head down. And all of a sudden it stopped. And I sat up and I was like, oh my God, what was it? And then I realized there was nothing there. So I asked Tracy to describe again what this light looked like in this figure. And that's when it became clear to me what was going on here. As Tracy says, it was like a light behind a person. I didn't see the actual light source. It was like a red light that you would think was behind something. I saw the outline of whatever was holding me. I remember seeing something standing there with a foot on me, standing towards my feet with a foot on my leg. Imagine somebody standing in the dark in front of you with a bright red light behind them. So all you can see is the glow of the red light and the silhouette. It was the shape of a person, but not a big person, a small person, maybe about 5 feet tall. It was like a skinny person. At the time, Tracy did not know how to interpret this experience. And now, looking back at it, she realizes that this is probably extraterrestrial, but at the time she was wondering if this was a spirit or something. But given the shape of this person, the fact that it was standing on her bed, there was a bright red light filling the room, these are all details that we see again and again in UFO encounters. And Tracy is sure this wasn't a dream, especially because these encounters had spread to her friends. So this is all she really remembers of her encounters, is being visited like this. So again, this is not a very extensive case. But what I find interesting about it is where it took place. In a hotel, in a hotel room in a very crowded suburb in Woodland Hills, California. It seems like an unlikely location for a UFO encounter, but as you know, if you study this subject, UFO encounters can happen anywhere. So that's a very interesting aspect of this encounter, is not only the location, but that it spread among Tracy's friends, which is another sort of pattern we see. Another very interesting aspect of this encounter was how Teri described this being, this figure, or whatever it was that entered her room, as being like a light that turned almost smoky or transparent as it went outside. This is a detail I haven't heard a lot, and if she hadn't seen this actual solid-looking round-like craft in the alleyway outside of the condominium complex, I might have doubted that this was even extraterrestrial at all. But she did, and so did Tracy's boyfriend, George. So this does appear to be a series of UFO encounters that happened among a small group of friends. And it's got those interesting details, which turn up again and again. That's why I wanted to present this little episode for you today. I know this has been a short one, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I want to thank you very much for watching. I did present this case in my book, 1 in 40, the UFO Epidemic. It was one of the earliest cases I investigated. I've since lost touch with the witnesses, but I suspect it's probably more extensive than what I've reported to you today. But unfortunately, I can't tell you any more because that's all the information I have for you today. Once again, thank you. Until next time, keep searching the skies, keep asking for answers, and most importantly, keep having fun.